Welcome to the Say Report, a cool, weird, wet hole. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan
Hey,
Sarowick.
hey guys, remember we were talking about putting things down on digital tape that maybe we didn't want to have out there?
Yeah, I remember that. But that was like racial slurs that neither one of us believe in.
Right,
Cool, weird,
exactly.
wet hole, I'm all about.
Yeah, I
And
like this.
and I'm the
You're
one who
gonna.
said it, not even you. I've said it twice now. It's your phraseology, and I've said cool, weird, wet hole 3 times now. Yeah.
You're just like I like that you're putting this down on tape though to keep a record of what I said. Like that's
You know
you're the
what
one
I
with all the
like?
control here.
How
The
good
power dynamic is
cool,
really.
weird, wet hole sounds. Like just as like 3 adjectives to describe something. Yeah.
Like it's one step off from like words that people don't like to hear, like moist, right? Like weird wet hole is like, oh, I don't need to hear that, but it doesn't offend me as much as something like, what's another word like
Uh
that people just,
Panties. People don't like the word
mm,
panties.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
understood not liking the word panties.
Well, the problem with panties is there's only certain contexts that you're saying it, and none of them make it fun to say that word. You know?
That's kind
Like
of true. You're
the most
right.
mundane place of what you're saying it is, oh, I have to go buy some panties, and that just feels really weird, right? Like that feels immature, and then it just grows from there.
That's a very weird wet hole of a point you've just made. You know what's weird about weird wet hole is that it's somehow alliteration.
Yeah, there's a
because
yeah.
because it's weird and wet are both W's, and then I don't know, whole can start with a W. I don't know. It's very strange. This is a
Oh, that's
phrase
entirely how
that
I've
you
been kind
threw
of
out there.
envisioning it. I didn't mean it that way when I first said it, but the second I realized what I did, it immediately turned into an alliterative phrase. Yes.
Excellent, fantastic. All right, we're not going to say weird wet hole anymore, even though that's 100% what this episode is titled. So,
Uh,
welcome to the Say Report. I just coughed, which is not different because I don't have a cough button, even though I should. But you're getting this on Sunday because CJ and I were super sick last week.
like mega sick.
Like mega, mega sick. Like collapsed walking into work sick.
Mm. Yeah, I was in the Sudafed headspace for about 4 days there. So my thing was not necessarily I was too sick to do things. I was too like meted up to do things. So it was like a weird world for the last week because I'm not doing it. But the last week was just a dream state for me, which actually fits into some things actually.
Well, I get that. For me, it was literal weakness. Like I
Mm,
had bronchitis and sinusitis, so my body just got exhausted far faster than it usually does. Like I have a lot of stamina generally, so like when a brisk walk from here to there has me like gasping for air, that
yeah.
is scary for me. It's how I imagine Superman feels when faced with kryptonite. Like, oh, what is this? Usually I'd have run a mile in a second, and now it's taken me 2.
Also, I'm coughing up this goopy crap into my hands every 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't understand kryptonite on like a real level, because like if I'm near something radioactive, it doesn't immediately incapacitate me. But I guess that's why it's fiction. Anywho,
I
with my
mean, well, wait a minute. No, we can't go too far away from this without really breaking this down for quickly because it's actually not that hard. I mean, think of it this way. He gets his strength from our yellow sun, and kryptonite takes it away from him, right? So imagine that you are as strong as you are now, and you got near a substance, and this is why you can't associate with it because it's not just radioactive. Radioactive. Imagine you got near a substance that suddenly made you as weak as you were when you were a baby. Like, think about
that's
that.
a very good way of putting it. Okay, so here's my question though: how does kryptonite, a mineral, subtract the power of the yellow sun? Like,
Well, through radiation. So like you're right that it works through radiation, but its effects are not just like radioactive effects.
I get you. I get where you're
Yeah.
coming from with that argument.
Man, you want to start getting into this? All right, like cell walls start to break down within his body and slowly
How come white kryptonite only affects Kryptonian plants? Like, what scientist was doing that study? Like, oh, I found a bunch of Kryptonian plants and some white kryptonite. Let's see what happens here.
I mean,
White kryptonite is bullshit. I'm just gonna
yeah,
say it. Also,
but
so is
humans.
gold kryptonite. Gold kryptonite strips you of your powers. How do they know that? How do they know that gold kryptonite strips you of your powers? There's not a lot of Kryptonians
Well,
running
I will
around.
say that I actually really like I really like Supergirl's like reason for different versions of kryptonite existing is Max what's his name?
This is the
Uh
show that we're talking about.
yeah.
Okay,
The show Supergirl handles it really well. Is Max, not Max Headroom? What's his name there? Her
I don't
supervillain.
watch that show.
Yeah, but Superman.
I
The guy that's on the same level as Lex Luthor essentially, and they use him as Lex Luthor in the first season. It's Peter Facinelli who plays him too. He's amazing at it.
you can keep saying stuff. I'm not gonna know the answer.
I know you're not going to know the answer, but I want everybody to understand who I'm talking about. But essentially, he creates different colored kryptonite in order to combat because he's so afraid of like what Kryptonians could do that he actually is the one that creates it. So the reason why like this kind of experimentation is happening and like all that sort of stuff is because it's a human doing it. It's actually not from Krypton, which is a really interesting twist on all kryptonite comes from Krypton.
Well, all kryptonite comes from Krypton, and then it passed through radioactive clouds in space, and that is what modified it to be
Right.
the myriad colors.
Right, and that's not what they do on Supergirl. At least they haven't touched on it yet in terms of other colors. But the big thing is synthetic kryptonite is what he creates in order to combat Supergirl, and it's a really interesting introduction of red kryptonite.
Technically, blue kryptonite is synthetic too, right? Because Lex Luthor created it to stop the Bizarros.
Yeah,
Like,
something
wasn't
like
it
that.
like some sort of bullshit? Why are we talking about Superman? I have so many other things that I want to talk about.
Oh, well, for starters, we have to start with my dream state week that started with me actually going to finally see Wrinkle in Time.
Oh,
You want to talk
God.
about a weird dream state to start off in? Yeah, man, we held off on talking too much about it because I hadn't seen it yet. But you had, right? You had seen it pretty quickly after it came out.
Yeah, I saw it the weekend that it came out.
Yeah. So I mean, like, really quickly, I think we should talk about this movie because it needs to be talked about. It's not First off, I'll say that it doesn't. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a 100%. It is not. It is not a top level film at all. But I had some feels in this movie, man. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, it's ironic that we're talking about this now because I woke up this morning and thought I hated the Wrinkle in Time movie. And I hated the Wrinkle in Time movie for the exact reason I knew that I would, and that's that they cut out the characters of Sandy and Dennis. Like, and
Okay.
100%, the second I saw the marketing, I'm like, so Sandy and Dennis are gone, right? We're just going to cut out them. They're not going to exist. And that's fine on the level of adaptation.
For people not too familiar with the book, can we do like a real quick
Oh, yeah,
rundown?
sure. All right,
Yeah.
so in the book, Meg and Charles Wallace have two brothers, and they're like the middle children. So you have Meg, then you have Sandy and Dennis, who are the twins, and then you have Charles Wallace. Now Meg, she's kind of like, I don't know, she wasn't represented this way in the movie. So if your time in the movie is all you've experienced with these characters, it's not going to really make sense. But Meg is sort of like the average person. If we're going to use Super Mario Brothers 2, which is the best way to describe like a group of characters, Meg is sort of the Mario. She doesn't have like her jump is normal, her pickup speed is normal.
And in the book, that's important that she is kind of weirdly the outsider in her family, but not because of something special that she does, but because she is not special.
Yeah,
very
it's the fact that
not.
she's average that makes her the outsider in a family of people who are extraordinary. And then you look at Sandy and Dennis, and they're sort of the Luigi because they're both like star athletes. They can jump higher, they can run faster, and that's the thing is that like they stand out because of their physical attributes. And then you have Charles Wallace, who is this like he's like a mental giant, and he would be Toad to keep the Super Mario Brothers 2 analogy alive.
Now, is that just because Toad got a big head? You think he's smart? Because I think Toad's an idiot.
No, Toad's a Toad.
I think Toad's a great character, but I also think he's a dum-dum.
Yeah, he's a great character. No, it's because he's the little guy, and his littleness is his power in Super Mario Brothers 2. Plus, like, none of them are Princess Peach because I don't remember anyone. I guess Calvin is kind of Princess Peach because he's a little floaty. But yeah, so that's the thing. So Sandy and Dennis are these characters that exist. So like, not only does Meg feel ostracized in her family because she's not really as intelligent as everyone else there, but like she's also not as physically gifted as her two brothers are.
Right.
And also the thing about the two brothers is because they're twins, they have a weird relationship that sort of splinters out. So like they have each other. So Meg finds it hard to break into the like friendship that they have. And it's sort of why she's drawn to Charles Wallace as a best friend or like someone to care about, because it's like this insurmountable thing to be close to her twin brothers.
Yeah, I mean, basic twin tropes. I mean, the two of them like almost have their own language together, right? And so like it's just not. She just feels again like an outsider. All of it in the books is to just make you realize how much Meg feels like she just doesn't understand her place in the world. So that throughout the story, what they come to. And I gotta say though, man, like despite not having Sandy and Dennis, like I do think that that's still a huge part in the movie. Like I definitely got that in the film.
Right, but the reason I was upset about the lack of Sandy and Dennis, and the reason why I woke up this morning lamenting it, is that, first of all, I don't think we're going to get sequels to Wrinkle in Time.
No,
I don't think A Swiftly Tilting Planet or A Wind in the Door are going to happen. Flip that and reverse it, because they were released the other way, not the way I just said it.
Don't tweet us, nerds.
But, so, like, even though we're not going to get those, it definitely means we're not going to get Many Waters. And, I mean, first of all, if you want a Many Waters movie, go see Noah with Russell Crowe from 2014, because it is about as close as Many Waters to a Many Waters adaptation we're ever going to get. Because Many Waters sees Sandy and Dennis, who do not understand the technical scientific stuff that their parents work on, transported to Bible times. But it's also like Bible times are fucking scary, because like the angels and shit are just running amok, and they're partially why God floods the world. Is because he doesn't like the influence of the Neraphim and the Seraphim on humanity. Like, it's some cool, deep stuff there. And it bummed me out when they're not there, because it's like, all right, so let's pretend A Wrinkle in Time was this life-changing, monumental fucking movie. We're never going to get Many Waters, because you're not going to have these two characters who never existed suddenly show up to pilot a movie.
Oh yeah, I mean it's to do a weird reference, but it's the same problem that they introduced with Aragon all those years ago. I mean, despite it being a terrible movie, even if it had been the greatest movie ever made, they cut an entire race of people out of that movie that ends up being the most important race within the series. Dwarves do not exist in that movie, which is stupid because from the second book on, everything happens to the dwarves. So the second they made that movie and they didn't have any of the dwarf characters in it, I was just like, well, congratulations, you can't make a sequel even if this does do well. So it almost kind of makes you wonder, like, did they ever intend? And I don't think that they did. I think with Wrinkle in Time, there's a chance they maybe could have pulled off some stuff, but I don't think that they ever intended this to be the ongoing series. I think that they kind of lost their taste for that with the Narnia stuff, speaking specifically of Disney. I think that they just they got over it. The Pirates thing is a one-off for them. The fact that Pirates is working as well as it did, and then they were able to get 4 more sequels out of it, I think even that's lost its steam.
Well,
so
can
I don't think
tell you something though? You say you think it's lost its steam, but I think that at World's End, not at World's End, the fourth one, the Stranger Tides, is that what it's called?
No, I think Stranger Tides was 5.
No, Dead Man's Chest is 5.
Oh, then Stranger Tides.
The Stranger Tides is 4. I definitely knew the 5th one's name because it just came out on Netflix, and I'm like, kind of wanting to watch it again.
Yeah.
But like Stranger Tides was a movie that I'm like, I'm not seeing this, and I am not like, I'm not quiet about the fact that I think that the Curse of the Black Pearl is the best Pirates movie, and then the second two were awful.
Okay. We will have this fight one day, but I will give you that Curse of the Black Pearl is still the best one out of all.
Oh yeah, no, but Stranger Tides, like I didn't want to see it because At World's End and the other one, Dead Men Tell No Tales is actually the latest one. Dead Man's Chest is the second one. Why would you have 2 Dead Man titles?
Because they're trying to probably erase the one that nobody likes.
Yeah, the Davy Jones ones, like they weren't great. Like those 2 movies were not great. And then I'm not seeing Stranger Tides because like one of the things I liked about it was Orlando Bloom. How's this movie going to be without Orlando Bloom? The answer is fucking excellent. Mm-hmm. And it's not just because they added Ian McShane, but that's a big reason why.
No, the 4th movie was a pleasant surprise for me. I saw it for free. I had gotten movie passes and saw it by myself and I mean literally by myself, because not only did I go with no one, but nobody else showed up for it, and it was one of the best movie experiences I'd had in a long time at that point, and actually thoroughly enjoyed that movie. No, yeah, the biggest issue right now is dealing with the Johnny Deppness of everything, but
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Sherlock Gnomes. I'm still gonna see it
yeah,
eventually.
yeah, Sherlock Gnomes has to be seen. It demands it.
All right, but let's actually focus on Wrinkle in Time. So,
Mhm.
personally, for me, I feel like it was not a great film, because it deviated so much from the source material, which is source material that like weirdly means something to me
Yeah, it
because I
means something
read
to a
that
lot of
book.
people.
I read that book in sixth grade. And I didn't love it in sixth grade. I'm like, "Ah, this is weird, and I don't know how to feel about it." But like those sixth grade images and stuff have always stuck with me, even
Hmm.
when I read it again in high school and then again in college for various different reasons that it like just kept circling into my life. And like a lot of the imagery that they chose to go with in this movie did not gel with ideas that I had for the film. And then it
Yeah,
just like the movie just sort of happens. Like it never really captured me in any way, shape, or form. And every moment that like almost had me like, oh, I feel a little unsettled right now, it then undercut itself with like bad CGI or like a bad directorial choice. Like they get to that neighborhood where everything is supposed to be perfect, and
right.
like there's this sort of sync going on, but then like it goes out of sync, and I'm like, well, that's not as unsettling as all of these things acting exactly in sync.
Yeah, yeah. So I, I think that like for me, where it kind of fell apart, because man, I got to tell you, like I actually think directorially, I do think that well, maybe this is a better way to break it down. Cinematography wise, I think it's a beautiful film, and I think that there's a lot of really interesting shots and a lot of really interesting setups for stuff. But it doesn't ever quite hook you, like you said. And I think actually part of the problem with that is that the real world, quote unquote, that they start off in, they don't. It doesn't feel any different than any of the weird worlds they enter, right? And so I think that the movie as a whole, script wise, directorially, imagery wise, I think that they ever failed to like lay down like a baseline for things to get weird from. You know what I mean? Like so then the world in whichever the symmetry world like doesn't feel that off because it kind of looks just like the world that they were in. It just so happens everybody's bouncing a ball together, and then suddenly they're not. Like you said, like when the mom suddenly starts talking to them singularly, which it shouldn't have been a singular mom, right? It should have been all of the
It
moms.
should have been all of the moms at the same time
Right, exactly.
talking. Like,
Right. So, like, all that sort of stuff, like, really it doesn't pay off in the way that it should because I don't think they do enough time setting anything up. And I think that that's the movie's biggest sin is they really just don't do enough to set stuff up because I think that they really could have established a lot more of Meg not feeling like she fits in. They really could have established more of like there was no Wizard of Oz moment where things suddenly were in color because everything just looks so similar,
well, I
right?
think, I mean, other issues with that, like not setting a baseline, is Meg's whole "I don't feel like I fit" and stuff. I don't understand. Like she's a kid, right?
Hmm.
Through all of this, she is a child, and no one is treating her like a child who went through the stuff that she went through. Like
No,
everybody's like,
everybody's
how are you not okay with your dad disappearing? Like,
Well, and I think that because again, the movie at the end of the day, the problem is the movie is just thin, right? Like
yeah,
they just don't establish like a real like hefty world at any moment where that you can really feel like, oh, this is my world, right? So like what you're talking about is because the movie is leaning so hard into the idea of the darkness taking people over, like the idea is that all these people around her like for some weird reason don't seem to care that her father has disappeared or possibly died. Like everybody's just real shitty about it. And so like it's this weird move to just make everybody kind of weirdly like uncaring in a way that is not real. So again, like it doesn't establish like a comfortable world that you don't want her to fit into this world almost because everybody's so mean. All I can think of is the teacher who's just like you got to get over this. And it's like, what do you mean you got to get over this? Her dad has been gone and she's what? She's 12 years old, 13?
13,
Like
probably
yeah.
14. I feel like 14 is what they were going for in the movie.
Look, end of the day, you don't tell a preteen to get over their dad's disappearance and possible death. You
Dude,
just don't do
especially
that.
when the fucking world hasn't gotten over it. The
Right,
biggest
exactly.
misstep in A Wrinkle in Time, the biggest misstep in A Wrinkle in Time is when she wakes up at night and Charles Wallace is making cocoa and the fucking radio is like, it's the 4-year anniversary of the disappearance of Meg's dad.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what? The world cares? The world doesn't care. That's part of the issue, is that everyone moved past it.
Yeah,
This is not where you put exposition.
yeah,
Radio, what are you doing?
yeah. So, end of the day, the movie just doesn't really land, and like I in no way feel like it ever earned. It's not like I'm disappointed or anything because it just didn't earn that disappointment for me.
Yeah,
But I do want
it
to,
happened. That's the thing. Like, I'm not mad
yeah,
at the movie, but it's like, okay, that's the thing that happened, and
right. And I think that that's actually an important point to kind of maybe end this poor conversation on is
well,
this
why
the
is it
idea
a
that
poor
like
conversation?
it's the movie. I feel bad for the movie because at the end of the day, like I am disappointed that it's not better. I'm just like from what I saw, I also don't hate the movie, right? And that is something. With all of this, the way that these kinds of movies play out, usually people walk away from these things just pissed off, and I don't think that there's I haven't heard that, right? I haven't heard that like that anger at this movie for not being what people remember and all this sort of stuff. And I think the reason why is because at the end of the day, there is a lot of like really interesting moments and stuff in it that happen. And if you back it all the way up and don't think about it as like this movie of A Wrinkle in Time, this beloved book that we all grew up with and wanted to see on screen, if you actually look at it as just like I got to take my kid to something, it's a hell of an interesting movie to take a kid to. I will tell you that. I like the biggest thing for me. I was sitting there and thinking the entire time. I was just like, this is not at all what I wanted this movie to be, but also it is weird enough that I'm still happy it exists in the world. Because man, is it still a weird movie? And all I could think is like they just don't make movies like this for kids. Like you don't make a movie like this that's all this like visual art stuff for children because kids don't care about any of that stuff. But man, like the moment towards the end of the film as she's kind of for lack of a better term, floating in space, I was just like taken by that. I was just like, this is such an amazing, like, weird moment to have in this movie. It almost felt like the entire movie felt almost like David Lynchian in weird ways.
I can get that. I can agree with that. I mean, the thing that I remember, first of all, you're also asking me to go back a month to when I saw this film, and like since then, I've seen a movie that made me feel the exact same way, and I'm trying not to conflagrate my feelings on the two films. And we'll talk about that afterwards because I don't care, Siege, and I don't care that you haven't seen this one. But going back to Wrinkle in Time, the thing that really sticks with me about that movie is when Meg throws the basketball in the bully's face, there was a father in the crowd who said to his child, "We don't do that." And I'm like, that's true. We don't do that. We don't throw basketballs at our bullies' faces. But at the same time, like that time it was sort of justified. Like this is a weird lesson teaching moment in A Wrinkle in Time. Dad who brought their kid to Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah. Oh
But
man.
yeah, it's just that. It's one of those things that like it existed. I can't think of another movie, well, until the movie I saw literally 2 weeks later that just made me feel nothing afterwards. Like it was too visually appealing to be upset with it, but it
Yeah.
was also like there was no substance. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
it's a good looking pizza, but I'm still hungry.
Yeah, no, there's no substance at all. It's very surface level, which is a shame because the books, as you were saying earlier, are just full of that sort of like substance, like meaty, like
Yeah.
what does it mean? The question comes up all the time in those books, and it doesn't at all when you're watching the movie. Like it's almost just like I don't know what this means, but I don't care.
And
Is
all
really
the
feeling of the movie.
cleverness of the book is gone too.
Yeah.
Like the happy medium is such a clever thing, and then they get to the world in the movie, and I'm like, oh, this is just something that exists now.
Oh, we missed the joke completely. We completely missed the joke of the happy medium. Like, ugh.
Well, no, dude. Not only did they miss the joke, they shoved it down your face with the whole "we need balance."
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, we get it. It's the happy medium. Also, I don't remember the last time you read the book. Happy medium for you, male or female?
well, neither really, but
That's a good point, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. No, they
but it
very
always
distinctly
leaned
make him this male like
right.
almost surrogate father feel for that scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like it was always sort of a female to me because I mean for me Wrinkle in Time, it was this thing of like Meg feeling like she doesn't belong, and even though she's like longing for her father, like that's a part of it. She finds these strong female characters in Who, What's It, and I can't remember the last one's
Which
name. Which, thank you. That like show her that she can be strong without that. And
yeah.
so then the happy medium as well for me was this just another strong female in
Oh
her
yeah, no.
life. Like
There's definitely a feminine aspect to the idea of the happy medium, and I think that that's more of a societal thing than the book itself. But also, yeah, I mean, the idea of her having strong female um, role models around her is a huge part of that story. So yeah, I could definitely see it going female. But like at the end of the day, the big thing for me is establishing very specifically that that character was male was interesting.
and making it Zach Galifianakis, who's a hell of an actor. I'll say that all day. I will always defend Zach Galifianakis.
Oh no, yeah,
But he also, it's like
the
one of
work
those
he was
things
given,
where a
he
character,
does really well with.
but like an actor always comes with some baggage, and you try to divorce yourself from it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's just difficult. It's a difficult thing. Like you say, like he becomes this sort of surrogate father figure, and weirdly that comes from him with the baby in The Hangover. That you view him as this weird father figure in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the last thing to just close off Wrinkle in Time, Charles Wallace, supposed to be like this quiet, otherworldly type kid, and you have him screaming every single line. Seems like a weird directorial choice as well.
I'll be interested to see how much more work that kid does, because I don't know if I like that kid's acting, but I also don't like picking apart a child's acting.
You know what he reminded me of? Have you watched any of The Mick yet? I talk about The Mick a lot, and I don't know if I've actually persuaded you to watch the show at all.
No, I have not gotten to it yet because I've got a slew of other shows that you keep recommending I'm trying to get through. But no,
and that's
I've not
completely understandable. But there was this moment in Wrinkle in Time where I'm like, you know who this kid reminds me of? Ben from The Mick, who was a 7-year-old kid, and he has a lot of meat in the show of The Mick that like surprises me. Yeah. But it's not that like this kid could be played by that. It's the fact that it's like he's basically just like any other child actor. Like there's nothing special. There's nothing particularly Charles Wallace about him. And that was sort of the thing that was a misstep for me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I mean they got to give you a reason to care at the end of the day, and the movie just doesn't want to. It doesn't work towards it. Clearly that's not where their concerns lie, which is a shame.
Right. So Ready Player One is a movie that happened. And that is and here's the thing. So before Wrinkle in Time, I saw my first Ready Player One trailer that wasn't the Willy Wonka song trailer. Oh, okay. The teaser with them singing Land of Pure Imagination. And I remember feeling after that trailer, I'm like, oh, this is how I feel about A Wrinkle in Time. Where, like, I'll see it, but I have literally no shit in the game. Yeah. Like, this movie does not affect me the way that, like, I'll even say it, like, Blockers, after seeing that trailer, I'm like, I'm very interested in seeing this movie. And that's like a throwaway early April comedy. That was excellent. Like, I saw that, and that was excellent. So I'm like, oh, okay, so that's weird. Like, I've never felt this way about a movie before, and here are two coming out within, like, 2 weeks of each other. So then I go and I see Ready Player One, and it's that same thing. It's just one of those movies that happened. And, like, I love to get, like, real mean about it and harp on the stuff that everybody else has harped on. But I was standing in line for PAX East. I went to PAX. I was well enough to go to PAX on Friday. Like, thank God for a cocktail of drugs that made me feel better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Screw you and your word cocktail, by the way. You cock. And behind me in line, like, I don't know. Have you ever been to the Boston Convention and Expo Center?
Oh yeah, man. And being in Boston when PAX is around is a trip.
It's a trip, yeah. So they have that big like jumbotron outside of it. Okay. And they were showing all video game trailers, which makes sense, right? It's a video game convention. and Spyro, the Spyro Reignited trilogy,
Yeah.
like, which people are excited about, and I think understandably, because the Spyro games are fun, but like they play like garbage now. No
Yeah.
offense.
I mean, I actually still play Spyro about once every couple of years. I, in fact, actually was just playing it a couple of weeks ago. So when they announced this, I was just like, oh man, I could stand for a graphics update. That was pretty much the only thought I had. It has nothing to do with the way it plays because you're right, they play like trash, but they're specifically talking about how they don't want to change too much about the way they play. And I was like, all right, well, I could at least do with a graphics update so that I'm not feeling like I have to throw up every time I play these flying levels.
Well, I mean, I think about that. Like, we'll circle back to where I was because I think about the fact that like almost all of my time is spent playing Super Nintendo games. Like,
Mm,
if I can play a video game, it's going to be a Super Nintendo game. And yes, it's Zelda on one hand, but on the other hand, it's just like those games have this weird timeless quality for me that I can't imagine myself going back and being nostalgic for PlayStation 1 titles.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Because the graphics are so, and it's because it's an emergent technology. They weren't really sure what to do with like polygons and stuff like that. Like even Super Mario 64, which is a great game, right? Like when you break it down, it's not fun to go back and play because of how unpolished it is. If that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider is also that they didn't hit you at the same point in your life as they would, as they would have with Super Nintendo games. Like there are a lot of kids that are a little bit younger than us that Super Mario 64 was their Super Mario World game. It was like Ocarina of Time was their Link to the Past. So like they have very different feelings about this stuff than we do. And that's the audience that they are catering to nowadays because that's the audience that's going to have a lot of disposable income and time. You
Right.
know?
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that, like, but I kind of like that rather than getting, I don't know, like, let's look at Link to the Past, right? It's the best example to do this. Like, Link to the Past is a game that existed and that I played. And then in 2003, they re released it for Game Boy Advance. But,
Yes.
like, they didn't make a huge amount of changes to that game in
Hmm.
order to do that. Like, it's pretty much the same graphics and all of that. They
Hmm.
added a dungeon and they made the Ice Palace harder so
Oh
that
yeah,
people
no. I mean,
couldn't
like
like
Super
skip it.
Nintendo. Yeah, Super Nintendo kind of came out in this like golden age of game development where like that stuff still works just fine today, the way that it was. You don't need to update that stuff like you do with the PlayStation stuff or the N64 stuff. Like I don't know what it is, but about like 16-bit graphics and music and like the controllers for the Super Nintendo and even the Sega, like the tightness of those controls was so good then that we haven't had a need to update it now. There's nobody out there making a better Super Nintendo because they did it. They made it right the first time.
Right. So that's why like I kind of dig this whole because we talk about like re-releases and then that's all we get now. And like yes, it's a little ridiculous that Resident Evil 4 has been released on PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 with like minor changes.
Hmm.
Like not fixing any of the things that I think are big issues in that game. But then like you look at Spyro and to go from PS1 to PS4, like yeah, that makes friggin' sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a game that people like, but like it doesn't evoke like happiness to see it. Same with like Crash Bandicoot. Like people were so excited about it, and it's still the same basic game.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just it looks
The
a lot better.
Yeah, the other thing is also the amount of game. I mean, the idea that they're going to do the entire trilogy and that'll probably only be like $40, 60 maybe, but I bet it'll only come out at
It'll
the
probably be
$40 price
40.
point.
That's how much
Right,
Crash was. I can't imagine them
right.
spending wanting more than Crash.
Yeah, I mean, so like the idea that for $40 you're going to get three full-length games that are going to have this update to them and all that sort of stuff, like it's a smart move for sure.
Anywho, so we're in line at PAX, and that comes up, and the guys behind us, and they're like total gamer bros, and I don't like to like cast aspersions on anything, but like there are now subsections in game culture that I just don't get.
Hmm.
Like, oh, I'm too cool for video games type guy. Like, you're really not. You're about to go into a convention, and they're like, PAX East is like Ready Player One, the convention, all the stuff you used to love again. And it's like, shut the fuck up, right? Like, these complaints about Ready Player One that people have been making, and they have been loud and they have been numerous, is more about the fact that it is just nostalgia the movie. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not this. It's not what is happening right in front of you, you friggin' idiots. And it's like, but I don't want to complain about Ready Player One anymore, because you know what Ready Player One got me to do? It finally convinced my sister to sit down and watch The Iron Giant.
Yay!
And it's like, because I've been trying to get her to watch that movie since I found it at Savers for $1 on DVD, like 10
excellent.
years ago. And I'm like, we need to sit and watch this. This movie is excellent. And she's like, nah, I'm not really interested. And then, like, we're sick this week. So I finally got her to watch a bunch of movies. And I'd actually like to circle back to that, too. Where, like, we're sick, so we're going to watch these movies that I keep trying to get you to watch. But you're like, no, I'd rather do something else. You're captive right now. You have bronchitis as well. We're going to sit and finally watch The Iron Giant, which is not smart to do while you're sick. Because the amount of crying you do at The Iron Giant, plus like a sinus infection.
Oh man, it clears the signs. It clears the sinuses
no, it
out.
does not.
Oh,
but yeah,
God.
like, so we got to watch that, and that's like that's a positive that came from Ready Player One, featuring that character. But I think like the one thing about Ready Player One that I would like to address is a friend of mine said that he liked it because he's into crossovers, so seeing all that stuff together was exciting. But it really wasn't those characters. It wasn't a crossover.
Right.
It was like, here's just the thing you remember that someone else is using as their identity. And that's sort of like my issue with the internet, is that people don't have their own identities. They just hide behind the identity of something that they enjoy. I want to like people for what they're like, not what they like. So again, Ready Player One's not really for me.
Yeah, we could go real deep into this and talk about the idea that we're all just kind of made up by our like references and cultural like influences. So really, the internet is just an extension of that, Devin, and your identity online is really just who you really are.
I don't love what you're doing right now. Here's what I love. I love that we were watching Speechless, which that show has unfortunately gone downhill, and they introduced a character who was like hard to deal with because he only talked in movie quotes. And after that episode aired, I turned to my mother and I thanked her, because whenever I was growing up, if I got too particularly quotey, she would like smack me down and be like, use your own fucking words. And so she allowed me to not become the person who only talks in quotes from movies and television. And I think like that goes a long way to me feeling like I have my own identity and I'm not just representative of the things that I enjoy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. I remember my brother and I used to have entire conversations in Simpsons quotes, and my parents would definitely pull us out of that. They were just like, no, and talk so that everybody else understands you. You don't get to do this.
You know, at the same time though, when Will and I, when we drove down to New Orleans with my parents, there was this moment where my mother's like, you guys speak your own friggin' language. I don't understand a thing that you're saying. But she's like, but on the same level, that's good, because you're not talking in quotes. But it does not stop the fact that you two have this shorthand that I will never understand. But yeah, so like if I were doing quotes, like she might be able to grasp onto those. So like languages still happen between people, Sejin. Like, now I wonder if, like, this show, we sometimes speak in our own language. We definitely do. We started off with a conversation about weird wet holes that, like, I'm sure went over, like, most people's heads.
Oh, God, we got 40 minutes in. We got 40 minutes in before it was used again. Oh, man.
It was worth it. It was totally worth it. But, yeah, so other movies, while I had my sister, like, held hostage by infirmary, I finally got her to watch Puddle Cruiser, which is Broken Lizard's first movie.
Yeah.
Have you seen that movie?
I have.
I
actually,
love that
long
fucking
time ago.
movie.
I saw that movie the exact way it should be seen. I saw it on a DVD player. I think it was an Xbox in a dorm room on a TV that was like in the ceiling, because that's what you do in dorm rooms, is you put it on top of the highest thing you've got so that everybody can see it. So like I remember sitting on the floor of a dorm room, not being able to quite watching that movie. It was right around when Club Dread came out, I think, because everybody was getting way into Broken Lizard all of a sudden, despite the fact that Super Troopers was amazing.
Puddle Cruiser was released after Beer Fest.
Oh,
that's
is that
when
it
it
was
finally
Beer Fest?
got the DVD release.
Yeah, Beer Fest must have been the one that had come out that everybody saw and everybody loved, and so they were like, "What other movies have these guys done?" And I was like, "Well, Super Troopers is the big one, guys." Like, oh man.
But like Puddle Cruiser got a DVD release, and let's talk about just marketing on the jacket of the DVD case. Broken Lizard's funniest movie ever is something that's written on that, from the guys that brought you Super Troopers. Like, and it's a naked butt. It's like, And that never happens in the movie. But it's like, let's sell this to the fucking college guys who liked Beer Fest.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies that I absolutely love, Puddle Cruiser, because, you know, it's from 96, right? So look at, like, the world of independent film at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And they're clearly doing their own thing. They're not, like, aping Tarantino or Smith at the time. They're doing their own thing, which is really impressive if you think about it. Plus, that movie does so much. Like, I read a critique of it on IMDb because I was just bored. I was sick, so what else was I going to do? And someone's like, it takes 45 minutes for anything to friggin' happen. And I'm like, yeah, but those 45 minutes established the movie. Like, films aren't made like that anymore because of the ADD nature of society.
Yeah.
And the viewers now. And it's like, it's just such a deliberately paced movie. And, like, the fact that you can complain about nothing happening for 45 minutes and it's only 2 hours long, like, that's cool. Like, that is not 3 hours. Like, look at something like The Deer Hunter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, The Deer Hunter's a great movie, but the first hour of that movie is literally so that you care about those characters.
I mean, like really, you want to talk about, like, films that take their time, like, everybody, the thing that's been getting me this week, it's funny because this kind of hooks into this weird conversation about Avengers that's been going on, is there's a lot of people around here that are a little, like, turned off by the over 3 hour long length of the new Avengers movie coming out, and I get that, but also everybody talks about this as if it's, like, this new thing that movies do, and I keep pointing out that, like, The Godfather, that's my big return to that, is considered one of the best movies of all time. I won't say that I, like,
you
still
won't,
hold
you
that
don't
up.
consider it that, but
I mean, like, The Godfather is a fantastic movie, and it's one of those things that is good for when it came out and all that other stuff. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, moral of the story: it is held up as, like, it's the same way you feel about Citizen Kane. It's held up as, like, one of the most important films of all time, right? And you can't really ignore that. So I don't ignore that. But also, it is over 3
so
hours
it's like
long.
the royal
and
you, not
happens
me,
for an
right?
hour and a
Because,
half.
like, Citizen Kane, I'll admit that it's important in film history, but I don't think it's the greatest movie ever. I'm not Roger
That's exactly
Ebert.
my point. That's exactly my point.
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't talking about me specifically. Like, you didn't have some idea that I think Citizen Kane's the best movie ever because I tried to write a Da Vinci Code-esque movie about Citizen Kane.
My point is, you don't think it's the best movie ever, but also you're not stupid enough to, like, ignore it.
I'm not going to protest it.
Right, because,
I'll protest
like,
the Da Vinci Code, but
everybody out there knows The Godfather holds it up. Everybody out there knows Citizen Kane holds it up. But man, you're talking about movies that take forever to take off, take forever to build this. So all of the rules that we have, I'm putting quotes in the air, and I realize nobody can see that, but all the rules that we have, like, the best movies we ever talk about don't ever follow them. So, like, the weirdness of people talking about things like that always kind of gets to me. And, you know, like, the idea of Puddle Cruiser, of something not happening for 45 minutes, if it's done well, and the idea is that you're establishing character and you're still drawn in and you're still following what's happening and you care, 45 minutes is nothing, right? The problem is when you've got a movie that just sucks and is just slogging along, 45 minutes can then feel like 3 hours. And that's when you've got a problem. But I mean, if that's not what happens for you when you watch that movie, then there you go. That's just good filmmaking.
There's a very intelligent thing that you just presented, Siege, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh man, so that's what you did all week.
So no, we did one more. We did one more movie, and then we'll jump into it. And then we watched PCU, which is like, oh my god! Here's the thing. Here's the Say Report.
I love PCU, man.
Blue Light Special Say Report recommendation of the week. Go watch PCU. Right?
It's everybody's best work. David Spade's Piven is the main dude in it, right?
Yeah, Piven is the best one. So, like, try to divorce yourself from the problematic stuff of Piven right now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
We've always known that Piven was problematic, but Favreau and the Funkadelic is the best storyline of that movie.
Dude, here's the thing. First of all, the reason why you're going to watch fucking PCU from the Say Report, the reason why this is your homework is to go watch PCU is A, Infinity War is coming out this month, right? April 27th, we're going to go see it. Don't be that guy. You know what? Don't wear the fucking band's shirt to the show.
Okay.
I see all of these fucking, every time on Facebook, I see these advertisements for, like, the first 10 years or Infinity War or all these, like, these fucking Marvel shirts that they're trying to sell, like, the perfect thing to wear to Infinity War. No, it's not. Don't be that guy. And now I've said it. Now I don't need to sit and ruminate and wonder if it's worth commenting on any of those Facebook things saying that it's the best shirt to wear to the movie.
No,
because
like
I've
Devin.
got it out on my podcast.
Wear that movie accurate bat suit you've got at home instead. That's
Actually, don't wear that movie accurate bat suit because a lot of the times they'll be like no costumes.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. You know what you wear? I have the perfect shirt to wear to movies. And try to find your perfect shirt to wear to movies. It is a shirt I got off of one of the like daily t-shirt sites that is 4 colors of Deadpool representing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it doesn't say Deadpool anywhere on it, but it is Deadpool in the poses of Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael, holding their weapons. And I'm like, that is so good to me because it covers the fact that like I dig comic books. And it's Deadpool. Like, the only time that it's acceptable to wear the shirt of the movie you're about to see is a Deadpool movie. Because fucking Deadpool would wear a Deadpool shirt to go see a Deadpool movie if he had the opportunity.
Deadpool would wear a cable shirt to a Deadpool movie. Yeah, man. Like my go-to Marvel shirt since Ultron has been I have a Jarvis is my co-pilot shirt.
And that's fine because it's like that's like a little tiny thing. Jarvis is my co-pilot is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah,
you get all the credit for that. But it's like wearing like an Infinity War shirt to see Infinity Wars is just like wearing a Merkin shirt to see the Merkins. And it's just like, and it's so good to me because it's John fucking Favreau, the godfather of the fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe. Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
But the other reason why PCU is an important movie and a movie that should be watched in 2018 is because we live in this culture where like being politically correct is such an issue for some people. And what that movie did in 1994 is something really important, and that show that there were 2 types of being unpolitically correct. There is the Republican fucking turds that David Spade and Ball and Shaft represent, who are like, we don't want to be PC because we're basically racist white supremacists.
Right.
But then there's that other side that's like, being PC only serves to highlight our differences and make none of us get along. That the pit represents.
Right.
And it's like one of those things that like we need to recognize that that's still a thing that's important. Like not being politically correct is not necessarily evil. It just means that like maybe I just want to focus on the person that you are instead of the like what you look like or what you stand for.
Mm-hmm.
Which has been sort of the weird wet hole that I've descended into, talking about judging people on what they're like and not just what they like.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you're not going to judge me on what I like, Devin. Because...
Oh, God. What is happening, Siegen? Did you finally see the 6th episode of AP Bio, by the way?
No, I'm up to episode 4.
Oh,
we just watched 4. What's the one when he dates the kid's mom?
That's the one that I want. That's episode 6.
That's the next one for us. That's the big one.
That's the one that I want you to watch.
I know it is. And we're getting there. Man, I told you, there's a whole slew of shows that we're watching right now. Plus Wild Wild Country came out this month. It's fine. I'm getting there. So I had some time to kind of just like figure out what how I was going to get through my sickness, and I was feeling kind of weird because of the medicine and all that sort of stuff, and I didn't think that what I watched was real, but it turns out that this was a real thing in front of my eyeballs, and I've gone back since and rewatched it, and man, it is just as weird not being on Sudafed. I fell down a hole with the game. Oh God, that's not the right word for it. The experience, Sonic Dreams Collection. Do you know anything about this?
No.
We don't give
GameCube?
Sonic.
Is that a GameCube game?
Well, okay. So here's the thing: we don't give Sonic any time on this show, and that's for good reason. Like, I don't want to sit here and act like Sonic is like the lost savior of video games, because a lot of people that talk about Sonic, that's the way they talk about him. No, Sonic is a terrible character. He was created as a counterpoint to Mario. Like, that is the thing he was supposed to be held up against. And Sega was just like, well, we're going to be like, we need a character to represent our console.
That guy's red, our guy's blue. That guy's Italian, our guy's a hedgehog. That guy's fat, our dude likes chili dogs and is in really good shape.
Yeah, our guy likes chili dogs, but he runs real fast. So yeah, no getting fat for Sonic. Except he always has like a little tum, which I appreciate. But
that guy collects coins, our dude collects rings.
Yeah, no, totally different, guys. So Sonic Dream Collection, about 2, 3 years ago, there was a group of guys out there that call themselves Arcane Kids. That's the group that they all work under, and they're developers, they're creators, and they put out again, games are not the right word. They like to put out art pieces, I guess you'd say. They put these things in the world that are just something to experience and just make you just question what a game is, essentially. Like, I don't know what their point is. I don't know what they're trying to do. And it's why I'm so into them, is because I don't understand them. They are just so weird. So they put out this thing that they claim. I'm trying to figure out how to introduce this. The way that they do it is they claim that they were digging around through old Dreamcast stuff. And they got a hold of a developer kit and they were looking through it and they were just trying to pull some stuff out to try and break the Dreamcast down, because for some weird reason we all still like are nostalgic for the Dreamcast, despite the fact that when it was out we all hated it. But so they were pulling one apart and they found demos for 4 different Sonic games on there that were being developed by Sega that didn't ever come to fruition. And their point is that as you play through these 4 different demos, you start to kind of realize why they probably didn't go anywhere. And so they set up these 4 demos for you to check out. And as you go through, they just get weirder and weirder. So like the very first one that they have on there is a Make My Sonic movie, Sonic Maker, right? So like you get to go in and create your own Sonic, and you go through and you can change his color, and you can change his voice, and you can like change his name, and that's pretty much it. Then you can go into picture mode, and you can do things like throw chili dogs and coins at him and stuff like that. It's just real weird, and take pictures of your Sonic that you created. But that's it. That's all. It's just a Sonic Maker. And so you leave that one be. And then you move on to the next one, which is Sonic Movie Maker, where you get to go in and put Sonic in different like positions and like film it, and then they show you a movie at the end, right? And then there's My Roommate Sonic, which is a virtual reality experience of living in an apartment with Sonic. And then the last one is called simply Eggman Origin. Right? And the thing about Eggman Origin, out of all of the 4 of them, is you go into it and it's unplayable because it needs to connect to SegaNet. And man, like, I don't think SegaNet has existed, if it ever did.
I don't think SegaNet existed for more than 6 months.
Right. Like, so you can't play Eggman Origin because you can't connect to SegaNet, right? So you start playing through Make My Sonic, and you make your Sonic, and then you move on to Sonic Movie Maker, and this is when shit starts to get really weird. Sonic Movie Maker is, I'm going to say 5 levels long, and by the time you get to the 5th level, you have come up against a pregnant Sonic sitting in a hospital bed that you have to drop coins onto in order to get him to eventually birth Tails. And you have to film it all. And then you that's how that game ends.
What?
Right? Yeah. You come out of Sonic Movie Maker having birthed him. Oh no, I'm sorry. There's one more level after that. I forgot. In which you then get birthed by Rouge the Bat into like a baby crib, and you look up and there's just like Rouge the Bat looking down at you with her legs spread that you just fell out of, and you've got to film that too. It's really weird. And then you go into My Roommate Sonic, because that game ends and you're just like, I don't know what the hell just happened, but I have to play the next one. And it's this weird VR experience where Sonic is sitting on the couch next to you and you live with him, and you keep getting text messages from Dr. Eggman. You keep getting text messages from him trying to, like, Cyrano de Bergerac you into a relationship with Sonic. He's, like, telling you what Sonic likes, and he's telling you what to do. And if you look out the window, you realize that Eggman is, like, watching you from across the street through, like, binoculars. And he's, like, watching you, like, seduce Sonic, and he's trying to convince you to, like, do it. It's really, really weird. And then you get to Origins, and you're just like, I can't play this. Well, it turns out that if you play through Movie Maker and you play through Roommate Sonic and all this stuff, you actually get, like, all of this weird text, like, coding clues to how you can actually exit the entire game, go through the coding files of the game itself, and actually set up a SegaNet account and then run your own server for SegaNet. So that allows you to then go back into Eggman Origins, connect to SegaNet, use your Sonic from Make My Sonic, the very first thing you ever did, and actually play through an online MMORPG. as the Sonic that you made creating an Eggman. And I'm not going to go any further into that because that gets so weird. I would need a whole other episode to explain what happens there. But essentially, I sat down and watched through, because there's no way for me to actually play this stuff, because like the levels that you have to go through to actually play this, the gatekeeping on this game is insane, because you have to find it somewhere. You have to have a system that you are really familiar with so that you can do all of the coding stuff with. Like you have to do all of this crazy shit just to play this game. So like, who is this for? I don't know. So what I had to do was I actually just watched a couple of dudes play through it online, and there's a phenomenally produced a playthrough of all four of these in a series that Polygon did a few years ago. That Nick Russo, I think is his name, and Griffin McElroy, the two of them play through on. So you should check that out, because that's.
Well, I'll find a link and share it on our Facebook page.
Yeah. It's super good. Though the way their playthrough of it is so well paced and done, and the way that it introduces things is insane. So like check that shit out, because I was sick as a dog, had this meds in my system, and I've been looking through stuff and trying to find like weird things to watch, and somebody was just like, weird Sonic games. Okay, cool. Oh my God, Devin, when I played through this video, I was just like, this is insane. This is insane. And it's real. It is something real. And then so you look back and what these guys do, these arcane kids, they do all sorts of weird stuff. They put these games out that are like, I don't know what to describe them as. Like one of the other games that they put out is a release of a Japanese electro pop group's like album. And like you can get the music for the album by playing through this like dev kit thing where you gather up the music and throw it into an MP3 output, and then like it depending on what files you find, those are the tracks you get. And if you don't find all of the tracks, sorry, you don't get the entire album. It's real weird. Like this is what this group does, is they put together these experiences using gaming. It's very, very cool and very, very bizarre. And I don't know like if it's ever going to amount to anything other than just like a weird niche like you ever play the big one a few years ago that was kind of in this wheelhouse was Frog Fractions. You ever hear about that one?
Nope.
Oh man, Frog Fractions was this game that was an online what do you would call it? Flash game. It was just a little flash game online. And how many times can I say that? You play this math game where as a frog you have to do math problems in order to eat flies, right? And you could just do that for hours. But then somebody went through the coding on that game and realized that there was like a whole RPG buried within it. And what you had to do was, as the frog, at some point you develop the ability to go underwater. And the second that you realized that you could dive down for miles, eventually you got to this whole other game that like introduced you to characters, and like you had to make decisions about like how people's relationships would work out, and then you had to go to court because you accidentally ate like a fly god or something like that, and then you have to like work, and then it became a Phoenix Wright like type game where you had to play the whole courtroom scene, and then like crazy depth into this weird world. It's just this like, it's this idea of making this freeware weirdness in gaming that I don't even know how to classify it or talk about it or experience it, but I just want everybody to see this stuff. Every time I find another one of these weird things, I'm just like, who do I show this to? Who do I talk to about this? So that's what I did when I was sick as a dog, is I went down this weird, wet hole of Sonic dreams that just kept on delivering. It just blew me away.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's where video games are at, man.
Dude,
and we
I
don't
really
realize
thought
it.
that I thought that I had gone off the fucking rails this episode. And then
Nope.
Siegen just talked for 8 minutes on something that I think may be a fever dream. I right now am pinching myself to see if I am dreaming and if this episode actually happened or is just another weird wet hole that we fell down. Oof, buddy. Thank you. Thank you for that. I don't think there's much more I can say. So
Nope,
if you
this
have
is
any
just-
comments on what we talked about today, you can reach me on Twitter at Devin D. Decker.
And you could reach me on Twitter at Siege versus the World, and I'll be using this as a platform out to just bring as much weirdness to you as people as I can.
It's like Six Sad World from Daria, but it's the Say Report. And now to our own Six Sad World. Take it a weird wet Will.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.